There are specific locations in the shadows that seem to behave differently. It isn't the rational fear you might feel in a dangerous alleyway or cemetery. It's a primal, wordless tension. To understand the unease, we first must look at the word pagan. This wasn't originally a religious title. It was more of an administrative term for civilian or dweller. It described people living outside the city wall, beyond the reach of the state. For these communities, spirituality wasn't a centralized thing, and it changed from village to village and even house to house. It was a survival strategy based on reciprocity. You didn't worship a river because it was good. You respected it because it could drown you and feed you at the same time. This isn't devotion. These empires rely on everything to be standard. They need a hierarchy that is the same for each province. You cannot effectively govern a population that believes that their ultimate authority is a mountain spirit or a thunderstorm. These beliefs are messy, local, and almost impossible to govern. To build a cohesive state, you had to separate a relationship between the land and the people. The destruction of the old ways was achieved through two very specific tactics. The first was slander. The ancient symbols of vitality, the stag, the forest, and night, they weren't erased. They were simply redefined and rebranded as evil. The horned creatures that once represented abundance were now turned into an image of the devil. Basically, the adversaries of God. And the second tactic was absorption. And this happened in a way of absorbing the holidays that were built around seasons. Major seasonal tipping point like winter were too deeply ingrained in the people to ban. So the New Order simply built their holidays on top of them. The dates remained, but the original meanings were hollowed out. The mighty forces of the land were reduced down to folklore and fairy tales. They were just harmless curiosities that no longer commanded fear. Psychologist Carl Jung suggested that our modern fear of these symbols isn't really about theology, it's about psychology. He called it the shadow, the parts of the psyche we repress to function in polite society. The civilized world requires us to put away our animal instincts. When we see the imagery of the wild, the fire, the mass, the chaos, we aren't looking at demons. We're looking at a reflection of our own repressed nature. We fear the wild because we're not as tamed as we pretend to be. But the pavement is beginning to crack. The narrative that humans are the absolute masters of the planet is falling apart. The environment and institutions are growing unstable. In these uncertain times, the old perspective is starting to resurface. We're starting to realize that we are participants in the system and not the owners of it. Silence in the woods is no longer a threat. It's a reminder. See you next time.